Welcome back to the Director's Garage. I am your resident idiot, Michael, and today we are hitting the sonic frontiers for a sound check of TinHifi's fascinating and delightful P2. This is a headphone that came to me courtesy of Linsoul Audio and a partnership we've begun, and I can't thank them enough for helping out the channel.
Thank you.
My wife and my bank account, thank you too. And I'm going to change things up by asking you to like and subscribe early in the episode instead of, at the end when we get rid of all this stuff. It's subs like yours that drive companies like Linsoul to help us out, and it only gets better with your support. So just think about moving your little finger over there and, Now, if you missed it, we did a blind unboxing in the last episode of this headphone right here, the TinHifi P2. And we didn't know what was going to be in the box that they sent us from China. And it turned out to be this, and it was such an interesting headphone. We're going to do a deeper dive on this headphone today. We're going into a full and formal sound check of this headphone. And let's get started right now. Now, if I had to describe the TinHifi P2 in one word, it would be audiophile. The TinHifi P2 delivers an audiophile experience that constantly challenges your ears. This isn't about fun, although there's plenty of fun to be had with these. It's about detail retrieval. I'm dropping stuff all over the place. Put the headphone down, Michael. It's about detailed retrieval and presentation. These headphones right here are an experience. Now, the first bit I want to talk about is ergonomics. Now, we talked a little bit about ergonomics when we did the unboxing, and nothing much changed from that except for the ear tips. I decided to go with a different ear tip because the standard TENNMAK turbos, which I normally use on everything, it seems to be just a good standard ear tip. In this case, they were a little bit loose, so I wasn't getting the greatest seal, and it wasn't doing the best for sound isolation. And then add on top of that, they didn't feel very solid in my ears. Like they were kind of move around a little bit, and they were a little fidgety. So I switched to the Dakoni foam tips, which I always have as a kind of a backup, one of my many in the box O tips that I pull out from time to time. Anyway, and I found these to be much more better at seating in my ears, so that came out good. And then the other thing was it sealed better. I didn't have, I got a little more isolation out of them. And then the other thing that the Dakoni tips did was it dampened the treble just a little bit. It just took a little edge off. And that's something we're going to talk about in a bit. But I really did appreciate that. Now, you'll ask, why didn't I use the standard foam that came with the box? And that's because these have to go back to Linsoul. And I think it would be kind of ungentlemanly of myself to send them a bunch of used tips back with my earwax all over them. So yeah, we were doing that out of just being a person. But really, we got to talk about power, because it's everything with this headphone. So how much power is enough? Let's put it this way. If you're not getting phone calls from the DWP or from ComEd kind of asking about your abnormal power consumption, you're really not giving them enough. So what am I talking about? Well, you saw in the what's in the box, I had the K&N8 turned up to 85%. And that was just a nominal, like, casual listening volume. That wasn't even like giving it any goose at all. So I switched it over to my Woo Audio WA5LE. Now, this is a headphone that is designed to drive the most power-thirsty headphones in the world. It's got 8 watts. And I sent all 8 watts on high gain into this headphone, and it went, yeah, okay. Like, I could go to 1 o'clock on these without it even getting loud. I mean, imagine that, 8 watts of power. So that's the kind of level of power we're talking about. And I'm not saying that they won't play with less power, but when you give them enough power, when I ran them through the Macintosh back here, they get remarkable. They get really remarkable. It gets so sweet. And then the other part of that is the tubes. And as you'll learn, the tubes have a great advantage with the P2. And what about the other extreme? Say we run them through this, which is the SP1000 from A& Ultima, Astel and Kern, I still call them, I don't care. Well, you're not gonna, it's not like they're not gonna drive them. You'll get sound, but it's not spectacular. Kind of the headphone sort of collapses on itself. All of the great soundstage and benefits that you get from the P2 kind of dry up when you put them under low power. If you underpower them, they go from being a remarkable headphone to kind of an ordinary headphone. And at that point, I would say, you know, try one of the other T varietals. Go with the T1 and instead of the P2, or the T2, or the, you know, one of those other balanced armature TinHifi headphones, because they're better suited for the lower power output. In short, you need about a watt of power really to drive these things. 2 to 5 watts, really kind of more in the sweet spot of where this is going to be. And it's really, the more you throw at them, the better it's going to get. So don't be afraid. I mean, like I said, 8 watts, man, and these things were just beautiful. Now, what do you get for that power? Well, you get detail and an audiophile experience that I haven't heard in a headphone at anywhere near this price range. Just spectacular. You get soundstage like crazy. In fact, let's just go to it and let's talk about some of the sound properties. And I'm going to start the sound properties by talking about the imaging. And here's one of the headphones' kind of surprising deficiencies, because I've heard such great imaging from other planar magnetics. These suffer from a little bit of smearing when it comes to where things are coming at you from. Like they're kind of like in this area and they're kind of in this area, but they're not locked in. So there's a little bit of bleed like around the sound stage. And it's not awful or a deal breaker. It's just a little bit vague for what they are. But then again, we're talking about $350. You're not going to get every category checked in every box. So I give them a little bit of slack on it. It's just not quite the imaging that I would have maybe expected. Now let's move on to soundstage, and it is quite a show. There is stuff going on in the distance. There is stuff going on in the foreground. They can be on the same angle, and you can be able to differentiate between something that's far away and something that's close nearby. It is a 3D sort of space around your head that is well beyond its class. Tremendous presentation. These headphones just give you, it's like a show, man. They're like, welcome to the P2 show. We're going to dance. And I think that the soundstage is the P2's absolute best attribute. So let's talk dynamics for a second. And I would call them reasonable, but to my ears, they aren't necessarily like special. You're not getting like this great loud to quiet things happening. Like when I put on tracks that feature like really quiet stuff and then boom, it gets loud, even like an orchestra or something, there's not like moments that just wow me and go, whoa, that was really, you know, amazing and jarring. So though these headphones are very fast, they're very fast to the note, I didn't find the splashes of energy coming my way. And maybe that's because they require so much power. I don't really know. I just think that there are better dynamics in other headphones in this class. But I wouldn't say that, again, it's bad. I would just say that they're just not quite special. And next we're going to move on to the sound structure. And when we talk about sound structure, we talk about the treble, we talk about the mids, and we talk about the bass. Not in that order. What is wrong with me? So stupid. So let's talk about the sub bass first. It's just remarkable to me how deep this headphone goes. It's not overbearing, it's just solid, and it's easy. And it's easily the greatest surprise I found in this headphone. It's not like gonna wow you with the amount of bass that it delivers, but the quality of the bass, it's formidable, but the quality of the bass is really impressive. And remember, we're talking audiophile class bass, not fun class bass. Because, you know, fun bass, like you get with the dynamic driver in-ears, it's got a lot of slam, it's got a lot of heft, it does a lot of grunt work, but you don't get the layered texture to the bass, and you don't get, like, you just get a great kick, which is fun. I love headphones like that, don't get me wrong. These have a quality bass, and it made me think a little bit about like the HE5XX that we reviewed a little while ago. Now those are an over-ear, but it made me look at them and go, like, what's your excuse? Because you're this planar dynamic 2 with a much bigger driver, and that sub bass is just gone on those headphones. And this headphone totally is full range by comparison. Now moving on to mids, you have a tremendous amount of detail. I have a lot of respect for the mids on this headphone. It's elevated a touch, which is not to my ideal preference, but it's brutally fast. There is immense speed here, and it more than compensates for the tonality. This is upper tier for mids. Vocals are tremendous. Acoustic, anything acoustic, just shines. Now, treble on this headphone, here I would say it's maybe a weakness. If there is a chink in the armor, it's the treble. The problem is this: the treble can get a little bit on the bright side. And it's not like that screeching harshness. It's just they're really accentuated, it sounds to me, through the treble. I think that they've got the detail right in the treble, but I wish they sort of balanced it a little bit more in relation to the mids and the bass. Remember when I mentioned tubes, and tubes sort of help tame things in the treble nicely, and that's why I loved running this off of the Macintosh and off the Woo Audio WA5LE. It sort of calms things down. It settles the treble in a bit, and you still get that sparkle, and then you get the tremendous depth that true tubes give you, which is awesome. But I really appreciated how the tubes sort of, because tubes are kind of like a filter, really, when you get down to it. It's a hardware filter, and every tube sort of changes the sound slightly in one way or another. There goes the furnace. So the tubes are awesome, but then when you move back to solid state land, it's kind of ordinary. It loses a little bit of that sparkle and a little bit of that depth. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker, but if you love a lively treble, then you're gonna love it, because these have treble in abundance. So let's move on to music. And you know, when I'm doing these sound checks, I really do enjoy talking about the songs that really accentuate or bring out the best and worst in a headphone. I'm going to start with Angie by the Rolling Stones. Now, there's a sensational reverb effect on that, with strumming guitars and mixed voice, and it's got kind of a slap echo, a little bit of a gate and compression. Just spectacular, very interesting effect on the P2. You have a guitar that's sort of locked in place, bringing all of that detail in, and then you got drums straight down the center of the mix, and then sweeping strings that were added. You know, it was the 70s, and they did all that production back then. Just gorgeous strings that sort of sweep in over the bridges. Just gorgeous. And then there's a nice bass underground that brings in some nice emotion. It's quieter songs like Angie that really hit the sweet spot for me on this headphone. So let's talk about Steely Dan, one of my very, very, very favorite bands. They sort of did this fusion jazz rock thing in that era of the 70s. Just gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm a 70s slut when it comes to music. I just love that era for rock. And Steely Dan, and the track I'm talking about today is Babylon Sisters. This is off of the Gaucho album. Just tremendous through the woo. And then you move on to Hey 19. On the Macintosh, I caught a little bit of brightness, a little bit, maybe even pushing sibilance here and there. On the solid state, things just got really ordinary, like kind of meh. Back on the woo, same track, Hey 19. Gorgeous, just terrific. So the difference between the solid state stuff I was listening to and the lower power and the higher power stuff, again, power, power, power. Next, I'm going to talk about my obscure artist. You know, I love to pull somebody who's sort of out of the mainstream just to throw at you, somebody to look at. And today's is Rufus Wainwright. Now, Rufus is the son of Loudon, who's a legendary folk singer. He's in a couple of Hall of Fames all over the place. But Rufus, his first album, had this flair for storytelling that is just exciting and fresh. He's a classically trained musician. It's the songs are kind of part Broadway, part Beatles, part Beach Boys, highly, highly, highly produced music that is from that late 60s era that I love so much. But this was done in the late 80s, so it's like a retro, futuristic, fantastic stuff. And one of the things I love about his songs were the instrumentation was very creative. He did very interesting things, particularly with that debut album. Check it out. And again, on instrumentation like that on the P2, bringing it back to the headphone. I just love that album, that first album of Rufus's on this headphone. Moving on, you know I love some Grateful Dead and, you know, American Beauty. And I'm going to pick a song off of American Beauty, and that's Friend of the Devil, 2496 recording. There is finger picking that is so precise, and it's accompanied by a bass response that just kicks beautifully. Now, these headphones lack the slam of some of the other dynamics, but there is enough slam there to really give you a compression effect when the bass hits. It's stunning. The presentation of the picking guitars, the mandolins, and snappy drums is just gorgeous. I love the Grateful Dead, and I loved the experience of the Grateful Dead on the P2. Someday I'm going to tell some stories because I have some experiences with these bands that are kind of wacky and off the beaten path. If you ever want to hear some of these stories, let me know. I'll do an episode where I just talk about a couple of stories like the Grateful Dead, winding up on stage with them 3 seconds before they did a live show in Chicago. Like some crazy, wild-ass shit that I'd love to share with you guys sometime. And next I'm going to talk about Macy Gray Stripped. And holy crap, what a ride. What a ride on these headphones. Now, the recording is binaural just to start with, so you know you're getting crazy separation and a super like fascinating, like holy shit out of your head soundstage to begin with. And this is one of my very favorite recordings ever. Macy is in the center and she's always recessed in the mix. Like you sense some distance between where her voice is and what's hitting you in your ears. And with this IEM, you can detect her actually moving around the mic. So maybe I ought to maybe pull back on some of the imaging saying it's ordinary, because man, the imaging of her, but maybe that's talking more soundstage. You tell me what you think. But her moving, you could hear her sort of moving left and right of the microphone and how that was affecting everything else around. I dug it. I really got a kick out of it. The sense of space, amazing. There's a string bass. You pick up the vibrations. That's how fast these headphones are. You pick up the vibration of the bass string hitting the fret, the buzz. Absolutely an experience on the P2. So let's start bringing it home a little bit. Now you can probably guess I really like these headphones. I think they're fantastic. Hooked up with the right amp and the right tracks, they deliver a terrific experience. They never distort, no matter how much I threw at them. They never got confusing. I went to some harder stuff. I tried Def Leppard on them with the guitars. Guitars were a little bit on the bright side, maybe not the best for metal, but heavy metal, not like thrash metal. The mid-range crunch, very nice on these. The distortion worked out well. They just came across a little bit on the bright side, and again, without that slams, overpowering slam, you kind of miss it a little bit. I also checked out the Scorpions, and they, you know, Scorpions are known for having a massive soundstage on all of their recordings. They're always big and tons of reverb, and it's bouncing. You know, a song like Still Loving You, very, you know, kind of bright up top again, but man, you get the detail of the echo and the voice just bouncing around up there. Just a great listen. But I'm not like headbanging with it. You know, again, you know, without the bass just thumping at you, it takes away a little bit from the headbanging. A song like The Zoo didn't really rock my world the way it does on some of the more fun category IEMs. So maybe not a metal headphone. I just tried it out because you gotta, you know? So, can I recommend these headphones? Well, the answer is yeah, I can. But I would also say make sure you have the amp to drive these things, because if your goal is to run them off of a 250 milliwatt or 500 milliwatt DAP, you might as well go with the T series. You know, you might as well go with something that's balanced armature, dynamic driver, some combination of the two, because until you put the right power to them, these stay kind of in the more ordinary category. But when you put the right power to these things, holy shit, these things are an experience. Their detail retrieval is, for on a $350-ish headphone, it's way beyond the bracket. And the bass extension is just going to catch you by surprise. I don't think you would expect them to have the bass extension they do. They hold their own with headphones many times their price. I would also say bring your best files. Crap files sound like crap. Great files are great. Shit files, you're on your own. On my solid state gear, things got pretty unruly, but again, I don't have the most money in my solid state gear. All my money is in tube gear, so there's that. I would also point out that the money that's in the tube gear is remarkable in that it's $7,500 for the Macintosh amp free, the pre, and then the Woo I have over $10,000 in, so there's that's kind of an asterisk. And don't think just because I have an expensive amp it's going to make every headphone sound great. Even great headphones, the Odin, which is a fantastic headphone, sounds like crap on the Woo. There's something really noisy in there. There's some kind of impedance mismatch. No matter what setting I put on the Woo, I cannot get the Odin to perform. Throw it on the Macintosh, fantastic. What do I want to hear these against? Because you know we're going to have to do a shootout with these, and it's probably going to come pretty quick. I want to hear these against the KSE 1500. I think that the pure electrostat versus the planar magnetic is going to be fantastic. I think that the bass is on the similar side, so I'm very anxious to hear these against those. I also want to put these up against the Mest because I think the Mest are a little bit on the overhyped side, and I want to hear what this with a great amp sounds like up against the Mest. I think the Blessing 2 is another safe place to go with these for a comparison. Obviously they're at the same price point, very close. We're going to be talking about the difference between a planar magnetic versus the dynamic driver and sort of how those play against each other. I think we're going to come across thinking that the Blessing 2 is a much more fun headphone, but will it be a better headphone? I don't know. Let's do the shootout and find out. Again, where do I put these? I put these closest to the HE5XX in an in-ear, but with all the bass added that the 5XX lacks. So what's ahead on the Director's Garage? Well, we have this box. This is from Audio 46. This is the first headphone as a part of our partnership that they sent me, and I am dying to see what's in this box. Super excited. I have a headphone coming from one of you guys, a viewer who wanted to help out this channel. So cool. Sent me a flagship headphone. But those are sort of caught in the Christmas postage slam. They haven't quite arrived yet. And I have this. This is another delivery from Audio 46, but this one I paid for with my own cold, hard cash. And I can't tell you how difficult it is to resist for weeks now opening this fantastic box, but I have so much ahead of it before I can even get to it. I just want to rip this thing open and show it off, but I am showing extreme patience in a time of crisis. So the stupid train hasn't left the station. And I want to thank you again to Linsoul. Thank Linsoul for getting us the P2. We're just getting started. We're still going to do a shootout with those, but what a start. What a start. The P2 is a fascinating headphone that competes with headphones way out of its price bracket. It's a heck of an experience, and I'm so thankful to Linsoul for sending us that headphone to enjoy and investigate. Together. Do it together. So a shootout is on the way next week, definitely. And then we'll have to say goodbye to these P2s because they're not ours. And then we'll see what's next. Again, these Chinese IEMs, they're absolutely killing it with the quality. So impressed. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you before you know it.